You've been watching national security officials testifying in front of the Senate Homeland Security Committee in the second hearing this week on the Capitol riot. One of today's key testimonies came from Major General William Walker, the commanding general of the D.C. National Guard. He said in his opening statement that it took more than 3 hours to get approval from the Pentagon to send in the D.C. Guard on January 6th. And we are listening there to General Walker give his account of the days. We're going to go back to that hearing if it's still going on after we are done with this newscast. But we're also seeing some new video now of the site where rockets were launched at a base in Iraq hosting American troops. Iraqi special forces are now leading the response and the investigation after multiple rockets targeted a base there hosting those troops. It's the first attack since the U.S. military strike on the Iraq-Syria border last week, and it comes just before Pope Francis is set to visit Baghdad. President Biden says the U.S. is now on track to have a vaccine for every adult in the country by the end of May. That's thanks in part to a new partnership between Merck and Johnson & Johnson. President Biden is also now pushing states to prioritize teachers for vaccines and using the federal pharmacy program to get all teachers appointments, he says, by the end of this month. And the Department of Homeland Security is now investigating a deadly crash that killed at least 13 people to see if there's any connection to a human smuggling operation. An SUV packed with 25 people inside collided with a tractor trailer near Southern California by the border. It's not clear why so many people were in the SUV or what caused the crash, but the Mexican government has identified 10 of the victims as Mexican nationals. And now to the fight for vaccine equity. In Philadelphia, Black people make up the majority of the population and the majority of COVID-19 deaths. But the Philadelphia Department of Public Health reports so far the majority of people vaccinated there are white. Now one doctor is leading the charge to address that. ABC News' Prime anchor Lindsay Davis has her story.
We are at the Leocora Center. Good morning.
Once again, it's Dr. Ayla Stanford to the rescue.
Stay here. We're going to register you here. We're going to vaccinate you here.
More than a vaccination, this is about dedication.
That was a good shot.
Thousands of shots a day.
How you doing?
About here.
I heard that.
Dr. Stanford and her team are taking careful aim in a war to protect the most vulnerable. Fighting a chronic illness that's far more pervasive than COVID, this masked woman is battling social inequality.
I am striving towards equity because 20 years ago when I was in medical school, these same inequities existed.
In Philadelphia, Blacks make up the majority of the population and the majority of the COVID deaths, and yet more than half of the people vaccinated are white.
Everyone was talking about this phenomenon of, sort of just frankly, rich folks come into poor neighborhoods and take the vaccine, but no one was doing anything. And the last thing I was going to allow to have happen is for people to now come and take what we built.
We first met Dr. Stanford last April after she became frustrated with the city's slow pace of COVID testing, especially in Black and brown communities.
I just couldn't be part of another town hall meeting or watch another webinar or talk about how pervasive the social determinants of health are and not do anything.
In a span of 48 hours, Dr. Stanford, a pediatric surgeon in private practice, gathered some medical friends, her husband, and a rented van. And with the access she had to tests and PPE, they hit the streets, calling themselves the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium. Philadelphians came out in droves. At the time, they were lining up for tests, just like they are now lining up for shots.
How's everybody? You good?
Areas long ignored or left behind, getting just the shot of hope they need, where going without one could literally mean life or death. On this day, inside this North Philadelphia church, Dr. Stanford might as well be a pastor. She is ministering to her flock, saving lives, spreading a gospel of sorts to get people to believe.
As a medical professional, we all take an oath to first do no harm and to treat the most vulnerable first.
Hundreds of people waiting in line to get the vaccine from someone they trust. For months, she's had their backs. So now they give her their arms with very little hesitation.
Want to give her a clap, her putting this together.
And so for right now, you've just stopped working your normal job and you are single-handedly saving Philadelphia 6 days a week for no pay.
Yeah. I didn't think about it like that, but yes.
And to make sure that the Black and brown community in Philadelphia is vaccinated. Why?
Because it should happen, because someone needs to do it, because it's the right thing to do, because it's not equitable. I want to change that. And every day that we get out there, we are changing it. And that's a story I want to be a part of, regardless of if I'm getting paid or not.
Philadelphia, the birthplace of America. But for all the fanfare, it is also the poorest big city in America. And like the rest of the country, it's plagued by racial and economic disparities.
As we know, people of color have suffered the most from this and have had the worst cases and the worst outcomes.
Mayor Jim Kenney recognizes the need and acknowledges the city has had some hiccups in its vaccine rollout.
We had a couple bumps in the road. We are doing really well now.
The city initially allocated vaccine doses to an organization called Philly Fighting COVID, helmed by this 22-year-old who was accused of giving shots to his friends. He says the doses were about to expire. The city later cut ties. Many people pointed the finger at a 22-year-old essentially being in charge of this botched rollout. And so my question to you is, who decided that was a good idea? How did that end up happening?
That was clearly a mistake. There was a history of Philly Fighting COVID when it came to testing. And they did a decent job. They're in the rearview mirror, and we're moving forward in a better way.
So I believe with the Philly Fighting COVID that there was element of implicit bias, where despite there being a reputable group led by licensed physician, that they chose a non-physician led group of young non-medical personnel.
Because you weren't selected, were you then tapping on the mayor's office, or how did you start then getting the vaccines and start getting the word out?
And I simply said, well, why is it available to another group whose track record is not as proven as ours, but it's not available to us? So I pushed hard to get the vaccine in Black and brown communities.
As a result, the Black Doctors Consortium began vaccinations more than 2 weeks ahead of schedule on January 16th.
I feel good since I got it.
The consortium recently hosted a 24-hour clinic at Temple University where they were able to vaccinate roughly 4,000 people in a city that averages 3,500 doses a day. Dr. Stanford, the group that you created, getting a few friends together and your husband and a van, is now outpacing the city of Philadelphia in distributing vaccines. How are you doing that?
It's because we know what it feels like to have a field that's not level, to be treated unfairly for something you have no control over, oftentimes, your socioeconomic status and the color of your skin.
When people are dedicated and determined that they're going to get this shot, then we're going to conquer COVID.
Thanks to a newfound partnership with the city, the consortium recently got a much-needed boost.
They started running a little low. We were able to get additional vaccines that were left over to them.
In the end, it's a win-win for everyone, helping the city improve its slow but steady rollout.
I speak with Dr. Stanford almost every day. She's fabulous. She's high energy. She's extremely intelligent and thoughtful. She's committed to not only the Black and brown community, she's committed to the entire Philadelphia community.
Her steadfast commitment can be measured in the number of rolled up sleeves, trust in a community that's often said to distrust the vaccine.
It's really unclear to me whether everyone just assumed because of the untrustworthy medical system that people would not want to get it. That may have been part of it.
72% of the Philadelphians her group has vaccinated so far have been Black, nearly 80% Black, Latino, or Asian.
At some point, we might start to see a dip in our numbers, but this is session 20, and we're vaccinating, again, between 400 and 1,000 people a day.
This day in North Philadelphia was no exception. Hundreds showed up at Dr. Stanford's clinic. A mile away at a brand new city clinic, no line. The crowd's opting to wait here instead.
And this is Moderna, so it doesn't need the -70. Oh, wow, we're almost out.
Citywide and nationwide, there are questions about why white and more affluent people are getting the vaccine at higher rates. Philadelphia is 42% black, but to date, just 21% of the shots in the city of brotherly love have gone to black people. The disparity and Dr. Stanford's reaction to it is making front-page news in Philadelphia.
Isn't that crazy? So it's like you wake up and your picture's on the front page.
Yeah, how do you react when you see that?
I don't know. It feels a little weird.
After all, she's not in it to make news. She just wants to make a difference.
I'll see you in 4 weeks after this, okay?
Okay.
I got to say to my team, look what we did. Not just how we felt, but look what we did. We set out to level a playing field. We set out to create equity where there wasn't any, and we're doing it.
So the outcome is more important than the income.
Yeah, because we are so filled up and refueled every single day with the gratefulness that we get from the community. You can't even put a price on that or value. It's good, and everything we've done from the beginning has come back to us in excess.
Wow, amazing story. Lindsay Davis, thanks for that report. And former First Lady Michelle Obama is giving her first interview since President Biden's inauguration. With more than 15 million copies of her memoir sold worldwide, she's now bringing becoming to young readers. So who is Michelle Obama becoming now? Here's Robin Roberts.
I'm becoming more free, and I hope I'm becoming smarter and wiser and more patient. I hope I'm becoming someone that is comfortable getting out of the way so that the next generation can take the seat that I'm sitting in.
Michelle Obama is making room, lifting up the nation's future leaders. It's her longtime mission as former First Lady, and now with her best-selling memoir adapted for young readers.
You know two young women very well, Malia and Sasha.
Oh, those two?
Yeah.
Yes.
What have they learned from your story, do you think?
What I hope they learn is that, who they are right now is enough. I always have wanted them to start practicing the power of their voices very early on. Look, if you sit around the dinner table, me and Barack, we can't get a word in edgewise, and we like it like that. We want to hear their thoughts and their opinions, and that's where it begins.
And Mrs. Obama says it continues with embracing all of life's bumps and bruises, along with its triumphs. That message resonating as the country enters a new chapter.
What was it like for you to be there, to witness this historic swearing in?
Well, it was a glorious day. The sun was shining. The mood was wonderful, but it was also mixed. I think everyone was concerned about more riots, but we were assured that things were under control. When you see fellow Americans storming the Capitol, that sits with you. That reality was with us on that stage. But to watch our friend Joe Biden and Jill stand there with their beautiful family, to see Kamala and her family standing there brave and bold, knowing that they were taking on a massive amount of responsibility to get this country back on track.
Being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it.
And another moment, Amanda Gorman, your first reaction hearing her poem?
I was proud and moved almost to tears to hear not just her words, but the confidence with which she delivered. I know there are many, many Amanda Gormans. I'm just proud when one of them gets a chance to be seen and the rest of the nation and the world gets to see up. A lot of black folks contribute to this country. A lot of black folks have made this country what it is today.
A rising generation not afraid to call out injustices and demand change.
A lot of people were watching those taking to the street following the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, say their names, and unfortunately there are too many names to mention. Is it different this time?
I hope so. It feels different, and what gives me even more hope is what happened at the polls in November. We got to march, we got to protest, and we have to vote. We have to be educated. We have to be informed. Young people are starting to put those pieces together and understand that, you know, it's not either or, it's all of it.
And they have had many examples. And Vernon Jordan, who recently passed, a civil rights icon, do you have any thoughts that you'd like to share about Vernon Jordan?
He was a dear friend, he and his family. You know, it's just a reminder that, you know, we've got to continue to fill those seats, not just in politics, but Vernon was a powerhouse in business. He worked in civil rights. He did it all. And that's the thing I want young people to know. There are many ways to make change. We need a lot more decent people who have humility and compassion and who are ready to be out in the world showing that off in whatever occupation they choose.
I remember being in Chicago with you and talking about becoming. As soon as you walked into your old high school, you light up around young people. What is it about them?
They are our hope. They are not jaded yet. They are not beaten down by what they're supposed to be. They are still wide open. That's the point of becoming. If you are lucky, you will never become something and that's the end. If you are lucky, you will constantly grow and evolve until the day you cannot breathe anymore. You know, we are all learning and becoming something better and greater.
We sure are. Thanks to Robin Roberts and Michelle Obama for that. Becoming Adapted for Young Readers is out now. And when we come back, the big announcement from the San Diego Zoo on this World Wildlife Day. Welcome back. On this World Wildlife Day, the San Diego Zoo is celebrating with a major announcement. The organization would now be called the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance, a nonprofit focusing on conservation. And here to tell us more about that is the organization's CEO, Paul Barabalt, and its wildlife ambassador, Rick Schwartz. Gentlemen, thank you both for being here.
Well, good morning.
So, Paul, good morning to you. What led you to make this change, and what does it mean for the San Diego Zoo and the animals in its care?
Well, this is a huge change for this organization. This is really about us reaching to fulfill our potential. Here, the San Diego Zoo and San Diego Zoo Safari Park is filled with talented team members, from veterinarians to nutritionists to care specialists that are committed to changing outcomes for wildlife. This next chapter of our history is really formed in what happened to us all this last year. The COVID pandemic has affected all of us. It caused us to step back and ask, are we being as effective as we can be for wildlife conservation? Can we be more strategic? Can we work with partners in a more collaborative way? And so that really led us to look at our work and step back and say, we have 8 areas of the globe across 6 continents where we could work and drive greater outcomes for wildlife, working with partners at all levels, from national to local. So it's a huge change for us, and we're excited about it.
All right, Paul, thank you. It sounds great. And Rick, I want to ask you, zoos get a lot of criticisms. People see wild animals in enclosures, and it appears they're there just for entertainment and to make money, and that doesn't sit well with a lot of animal lovers. What do you say to that?
Well, I would say as an animal lover myself and someone who has dedicated my life to connecting people with wildlife in the efforts to encourage conservation and care for them, I would invite any animal lover like myself to come to the zoo or safari park to experience for themselves this absolutely amazing and wonderful space. Our staff does such a great job with these animals. And speaking of animals, I've got some great animal ambassadors I'd love to introduce you to right now.
All right, go ahead, Rick. Introduce us. This is my favorite part of any of these segments.
All right. I know. This is really where the magic happens, too. When you come to the zoo or safari park, come here, Taj, you get a chance to meet these animals up close and personal, and that's when you can look them in the eye and experience them looking you in the eye as well. And when you fall in love with them, you definitely want to know, how can you help? What can I do to make a difference? Well, Taji here is an African crown crane, getting that beautiful name from, of course, the beautiful crest on her head.
Taji's putting on a show for us.
Over here. Well, she's showing off these beautiful animals. They need our help. Like Paul mentioned, we are dedicated to taking care of the ecosystems and areas where these species can be found. And when you come join us to be an ally for wildlife, you make a difference as well. And that's what this is all about. Taj is enjoying the morning sun right now here in San Diego, having a beautiful time of it. Now, she's the native species, the crown crane is native to Africa, and we have another African animal. I'm going to have you guys focus right here on the little dirt area we've set up. We've got a little friend that's going to be coming out, a bat-eared fox, native to Africa also. It's one of our hubs in Africa. Africa area, the savannah is one of our hubs. We're going to be focusing on animals like elephants and rhinos, lions and leopards, but the biodiversity is just as important as anything. If we only focus on one or two species, we're going to lose our opportunity to really take care of all the animals in that environment. There she goes. There she is. Now, the bat-eared fox, you can look there, obviously gets her name from those large ears. They're omnivorous. They're going to be eating a lot of bugs and insects and grubs, digging in the ground, looking for that food. But also right now, she's aware of a lot of people and activity on the other side of this plant, so she's picking up sounds there. This is normal. As they would hunt and look for their food, they'd be listening for predators that might be out there for them. Now, in just a moment, we'll give her another second to find a snack there. You might hear a loud whistle. That's going to be her call to head back home. We'll bring out a couple more animals for you. Oh, but there's still some snacks in there, she says. Hold on a second, whistle. That's the one fun thing about working with our animals. And again, having the opportunity for guests to see them up close and personal, it's an opportunity to learn that they are their own individuals, their own personalities. And we have coming up now another animal from Australia. Often with this animal, when you first glance at him, we have a lot of people asking us, is this related to the hedgehog or maybe the porcupine? Well, believe it or not, this is the only other egg-laying mammal on the planet alive today. This is called an echidna. Now, they're an insectivore directly related to the platypus, and we also have another conservation hub right there in Australia. And again, when you're looking at these things for conservation, these amazing animals, you can't just think about the individual. What about the biodiversity? What about the health of the environment? And of course, the people. The people make a big difference. Those that visit the areas where the animals live, those that live natively where the animals live, and then people coming to the zoo or safari park, supporting our conservation efforts around the world. Now, the fun thing about these, like all quilled animals, they cannot shoot their quills. It's just a myth. What they can do, though, is they'll dig themselves down and just leave a patch of quills right up there so predators really don't want to mess with them too much. But speaking of Australia, we do have one more animal to share with you. A little more well-known, perhaps, to the Australian area. It's a large marsupial you might recognize. We'll bring her out in just a second. Now, I want to clear something up as we're bringing her out. Not all marsupials have pouches. That's a little inaccurate. We tend to think all marsupials have pouches to keep things in them. Well, if you're a marsupial, it means you were raised in the pouch. So in other words, only the females have pouches. They raise the young in the pouch. They don't keep their keys in there or anything else. They just have a good time. Look at me, Ruby. Come say hi. Ruby's checking out the morning sun. There you are. Hi, sweetheart. Come around this way. There you go. So Ruby here is our little red kangaroo. The classic kangaroo, of course, those large hind legs. People always like to ask us if they box. Well, the males, when fighting for territory rights, will get up on their hind legs nice and tall. Boys can get up to 180 pounds, almost 6 feet in height, and they will grapple with each other. But what looks like boxing is actually they're kind of measuring the distance, because then they'll go all the way up on their tail and kick with those powerful back legs. Now, the kangaroo fills sort of the same niche as the deer here in North America. They live in large groups, but instead of being called a herd, they're called a mob. There's a couple males that might hang out and really be in charge of the whole mob, with the females and the youngsters and making out the most of the population. But basically what we're getting at here is animals are important, and we need to connect people to them, and that's why we're here. And San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance is dedicated not just to connecting our guests and our members to these animals, but we're looking at this at a global level. We have partners all over the world that we're working with, sharing information and sharing our passion for animals, and we're very excited to announce all of this on World Wildlife Day.
All right. Paul Barabalt and Wildlife Ambassador Rick Schwartz of the San Diego Zoo Wildlife Alliance, thank you both. We appreciate it, and thank the animals. They put on quite a show for us. And that does it for this ABC News Live update. I'm Diane Macedo. Remember, ABC News Live is here for you all day with the latest news, context, and analysis. And now we're going to take you back to that Capitol hearing where national security officials are testifying about the Capitol riot. I'll see you back here at 3 p.m. Eastern for the breakdown.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.